Rosanna, and I'm a product lead at Miro, responsible for the experiences and tools that help product development teams run their agile practices and workflows on Miro. And today I'm going to walk you through 2 tools that we have built to help you level up your planning practices. So for us to best support product development teams, we need to think about how we support them throughout the product development lifecycle. So not just at the discover and define phases, but help move them through into planning, develop, and execution. And so when we start to think about how we help move users from discover, where we feel Miro is very strong today, and a lot of our users do a lot of their discovery work, into more of that execution, more structured work phases, the most obvious next step was for us to look at planning. So think quarterly planning, road mapping, sprints, and stand-up. And so we started by focusing on quarterly planning, also known as big, broom, or PI planning, and worked with 20 of our largest enterprise customers to better understand how they ran PI planning today and the different steps that were involved at each stage. And from these conversations, we identified 4 key phases. 1, the prep phase. So creating the content and the boards needed to successfully run a PI and planning all the logistics around agendas and who joins and when. Then we move into the actual PI planning process. So day 1 is really about setting the context and helping teams present their plans, identify and map dependencies between teams, and get draft feedback from any stakeholders that they can use to refine their plan. Then we move into day 2, where the teams start to take all that feedback from day 1 and refine their plan, identify and manage risks, and vote on the confidence level that they have to succeed in that next quarter. And finally, after all of that kind of live planning has occurred, there is a bit of work to really get all of the decisions that have been decided, all of the priorities and decisions that have been made throughout that planning process into the team's system of record. So think Jira or Azure, in order for the team to execute against that roadmap and deliver. And so through these conversations with our customers, we really want to understand where the biggest pain points exist today and where the biggest opportunities for us to support these customers. And Shu within my team is going to role play the voice of the customer to help communicate some of the biggest themes or pain points that we saw across our user base.
Thanks so much, Rosanna. And hey, everyone, I'm Shubhangi, and I'm so glad I could be here today, even though I'm on leave through Talk Track. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about the hiccups that came up during our last planning session. First off, during prep. So when we were preparing all of the content, we had to bring all of the information from Jira into Miro. And this was really difficult because we had to copy tickets in, ensure the information was accurate, ensure everything was up to date. And we had to do this again and again. And it really felt like we were about to burn out the sheer amount of information that we had to bring in and we had to ensure was accurate. The other little hiccup came up during the first day of planning when all the information was on the board and we needed to map the dependencies. And honestly, it looked like a plate of spaghetti because we could not figure out which dependency line connected which ticket to what, how to filter them, how to ensure we could actually talk about specific dependencies. It was really, really difficult and caused the teams to really stress out to try to just get to a conclusion. And finally, in follow-up, updating the system of record, just like in prep, is really, really difficult because there's so much double work. You have to ensure that whatever is discussed is updated into Jira and there are no mistakes. And of course, we're all humans, so there's a little bit of human error that can come in, and that's just not possible because you cannot make a mistake in this sort of phase of planning. And more so, to be able to just ensure that everything is on track and everything is sort of like synced in a way where everyone's on the same page was really, really hard. And it took just a lot of time, a lot of effort, and again resulted in teams feeling a little burnt out. And what made it worse was planning really energizes the team. Everyone's very excited to kick off working on the projects that were discussed. But because of this sort of follow-up delay, the team's excitement started to dip because we had to ask them to hold on and take a pause because we were still updating all of the content. So seriously, it would be really nice to move away from all of these hiccups.
So we took these pain points that we saw that existed across some of our largest enterprise customers, and we grouped them into 4 key areas of opportunity where we believe the Miro could best help resolve and provide a better planning experience. 1, removing the manual work that happens pre and post PI to prepare and update the plan. 2, to make sure that content throughout the PI planning days and after remains always up to date. 3, to visualize all the dependencies that exist within and between teams in a way that allows meaningful discussions to occur. And 4, to help teams make prioritization decisions based on capacity and load or dependencies that might exist to really set their teams up for success. So how did we solve these issues? We built the Planner and Dependencies app. Planner and Dependencies app allow you to create customized views of the data you have in your system of record. They then allow you to work with that data directly within Miro, and all changes are made directly within your system of record. So there is no more manual work. Everything you do both before and during PI remains up to date between Miro and Jira through our 2-way sync. 3, we pull in all the dependencies that you have between any of the Jira cards or planners that you have on the canvas and visualize all these dependencies so you can see what is dependent in what, and also allows you to filter that view if you want to have conversations around a specific dependency or issue. And finally, we created capacity and load calculations, which allow you to see the volume of issues that you have in a given sprint versus the capacity you have planned, and help you make those prioritization decisions to set your team up for success. And before I show you how these kind of features all come together in a PI planning scenario, why not give them a try today? If you have a Miro board open and are on the business or enterprise plan, go to the left toolbar and search for Planner. You can then place a planner directly on the canvas and start to configure it however you want. Here I'm going to show you and walk you through a scenario where I might set up a team board for PI planning. So here you can see that I've created a planner widget where I've chosen sprints as columns. And so what this has done is it's gone to the board in Jira of which I have selected and has gone and presented all cards into the correct sprint columns, so I can get a quarter view of all of the work that my team has planned. You'll then see that I want to move some of the items that are still in the backlog into sprints. And so by moving these items directly from the backlog into sprint 4, they are automatically updated within Jira. And so if I open these issues within Jira, you would now see that they're assigned to sprint 4. So there's no more manual work to make sure that the decisions that I make in planning are reflected in my system of record. Next, you might have noticed the capacity and load columns at the top. What this allows me to do is total all of the story points within all the issues within each column and represent them as the total load or work that I have planned for a given sprint. It then allows me to manually enter the capacity of each sprint and help identify where maybe I need to move some issues around to help set my team up for success based on their capacity and what I have planned. And so again, by moving an issue out into a following sprint to help kind of reduce the load of that sprint, that decision is automatically reflected in Jira and there is no more manual work. And finally, how does this work with Dependencies app? So what the Dependencies app allows you to do is to visualize any dependencies that exist between any Jira cards on your Miro board. And so you can access it by going to the top menu bar. If it doesn't appear directly, you can search it in the list and click Dependencies app. Again, you have to be on the business or enterprise plan to use these features. What it then goes and does is it searches within Jira for all of the dependencies that exist for issues on the board and represents it in a really nice and visual way. Here's a scenario where you have 2 dependencies, one which is a draft dependency which is represented by this hyphenated line, which means that I've created that dependency just within Miro. So maybe I'm not ready to publish it to my system of record, i.e. Jira. And the other, which is a representation of a solid line, which means that it is a dependency that exists within Jira. And what you can see here is that I have two issues within Sprint 3 across two different platforms that are dependent on each other. And so you can see in a real world scenario why I might want to move one of those issues out into a following sprint to reduce the risk of that team being blocked. Obviously, in this scenario, we are showing you only a couple of dependencies, but we know at companies you can have hundreds or thousands of dependencies that might exist within a given team or across teams. And so by clicking on the filter button, you're able to filter the view of what dependencies you see. And there are two ways that you can filter this view. You can either filter by dependency type. So if, for example, you only want to have conversations around, say, blockers, you can do that. Or you can switch our lines to on selection mode, which means you only see the lines for the cards you've selected. And you can really have those focused discussions around prioritization. And so Shabani, acting as the customer, has a question to ask. Let's see what she has to say.
This is super cool, Rosanna. Thanks so much for sharing. I had a quick question. What if me and the team wanted to run other types of planning? Let's say we did want to run a big room or a quarterly product planning session. Is there a way we could use the features for other types of planning?
Great question, Shu. So whilst we initially built these features with the use case of PI planning in mind, we quickly have expanded the functionality to really provide the customization to use it across rituals. So not only can you use it in PI planning or quarterly planning scenarios, but also within situations such as stand-up, sprint planning, road mapping, or bug triaging. And so here's an example of how you can configure a planner from scratch. You can see I'm selecting my team's board, and then I'm choosing status for columns. So in this scenario, maybe I'm running stand-up or maybe I'm running sprint planning. I can configure which of those columns are shown. And if I wanted to, I could divide that work further into swim lanes or rows and also filter by issue type. But in this scenario, I just want to see my kind of current sprint and the work that I've planned. I'm also going to show you how you can switch on capacity and load. So if you go to the configure cards within the Jira Cards app and search for story points field and toggle it on, you will see that story points will start to appear. The story point field will appear on your cards. The capacity and load fields will appear for you to work with them. And so here you can see that I can see the total load of story points in each of these columns. And if I wanted to, I could enter in capacity and make some decisions. If you're an Azure user, not to worry, these features are coming very soon. And I think we're about to launch a poll to help understand if you would like to get early access to start testing planner and dependencies on Azure. And so within the next couple of weeks, we're going to start with a beta group of testing planner and dependencies on Azure, and then we'll start to continue to improve these functionalities to really help our Azure customers run this seamless product planning today. And if you want a better understanding of what is coming and when, I'll give you a quick overview of what to expect. So hopefully within the next couple of weeks, we'll start to have beta users testing these features and validating that they work the way that they expect. Then by mid-November, we hope to go to general access with both the first version of Planner and Dependencies app to help you start testing and planning out your PI planning scenarios. We have also, in parallel, done extensive work to improve the speed and performance of our Azure integration and how cards work. And so by the end of November, these should all be available to you as an Azure user if you're on the business and if you're on the enterprise plan. Then in December and the end of November, we're going to work hard to keep adding that level of customization to both the Planner and Dependencies app, working with some of our customers to make sure that it has all the fields that help them run a successful planning session. And so by the end of December, there should be a lot more customization that you can do to the planner when it comes to rows, columns, and filters, and allow you to actually directly create dependencies within Azure from Miro. We also are prioritizing some additional helpful features to help teams throughout the kind of planning experience, allowing users with Azure to bulk convert stickies or cards into Azure items and better search and find the issues they want to import from Azure. So we really hope that you'll try out these features and we can help you get set up for success for your next PI. If you're interested in signing up for the beta, please respond to the poll and we'll get in contact directly. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you are as excited to try these features as we are.